time. One load can operate at a time. All right. So according to the 2026 NEC, what's the minimum calculated load for this feeder? So only one load is going to operate at the same time. So that means one load shuts off, other load turns on. When this load shuts off, that one turns on. That's how I think of it. What is the minimum calculated load for this feeder? What would the minimum calculated load for this feeder be? The equipment is listed in design, so only one load can operate at a time. Let us see. We know it's not continuous duty, anything like that. Protection, we got 430.3. We're just looking through, we're bold scanning right now. Bold scanning. A feeder supplies the following two motor operated loads. Two motor operated loads. Two motor operated loads. Now this is saying a feeder supplies, right? So it's not a motor supplies. So this makes me think, do we even have to be in section or in chapter 4 for this? Or are we in another chapter entirely for the feeder? For the motor loads. You know, it makes you kind of look around here. So I'm going to look for appliance. I'm just looking through 120. For feeder loads. All right. So I'm not finding anything in 120. All I found was the one section that was saying 120 for motors and air conditioning equipment, 120.50. Motors, the conductor sizing requirements specified in 430.24. And the feeder demand factor calculation method specified in 430.26 shall be used to determine motor loads. So there's two little things there that we can go search. And I got air conditioning equipment, the conductor sizing requirements specified in Article 440, Part 4 shall be used to determine air conditioning loads for hermetic refrigerant motor compressors. This is an air compressor, so I don't think this would count as a. Does that count? An air compressor count for refrigerant motor compressor? Air conditioning load for hermetic refrigerant motor compressor. See, this is getting into things I never worked with. So that's where it can really throw you for a loop if you don't know what these things are. If you never worked with these things, if you don't know where they are, what system they're used in, you know, it can kind of throw you for a loop. But if you know these things, I'm sure it's clicking with you like that, right? So, you know, that's a me problem. I got to go work on more refrigerants and compressors and motors. But we're going to look through this. Consider whether both loads must be included simultaneously when the equipment is designed so they cannot operate at the same time. So we got 430.24, several motors or a motor and other loads. Conductors supplying several motors or a motor and other loads shall have capacity not less than the sum of each of the following: 125% of the full load current rating of the highest rated motor as determined by 430.6, sum of the full load current ratings of all other motors in the group as determined in 430.6, 100% of the non-continuous non-motor load, 125% of the continuous non-motor load, and we got some exceptions which don't really go with what we're talking about. We got exception 1, where one or more of the motors of the group are used for short time, intermediate, periodic, or varying duty. The ampere rating of such motor is used to and the summation shall be determined in accordance with 430.22e for the highest rated motor, the greater of either the ampere rating from 430.22e or the largest continuous duty motor, full load current multiplied by 1.25 shall be used in the summation. We got exception 2, the ampacity of conductor supplying motor operated fixed electric space heating equipment. Doesn't really go with what we're doing. We got exception 3, where the circuitry is interlocked so as to prevent simultaneous operation of selected motors or other loads. The conductor ampacity shall be permitted to be based on the summation of all of the currents of the motors and other loads to be operated simultaneously. That results in the highest total current. Okay? So, we are going to go ahead. We're going to take our 30 amps. So we gotta basically sum these. We gotta see which one is the minimum. So we're looking for minimum. And we are using 1.25. Okay. And we're going to take our 30 amp and 24 amp, right? We're going to take 30 amp times 1.25, 24 amp times 1.25. All right, and we're going to open up my calculator here. So I can already tell, I think this is going to be based off of the dust collector, as that's the minimum calculated load for this feeder. Only one load can operate at a time, remember that. One load is operating at a time. These both aren't operating at the same time. All right, so let's just look through here. Other than continuous duty, we got, I'm just looking through some other pages. And this says nothing about continuous duty. Nothing going on with continuous duty. And we know this isn't single motor. So we can ignore that part entirely there. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to take my 24 amps for my dust collector. I'm going to times it by 1.25. That's going to give me 30 amps. And then I'm going to take that 30 amp dust collector. I'm going to times it by 1.25. That's going to give me 37.5. That is, I'm going to go with the 30. That's my minimum. And I believe that's correct. And that's all we have to do for that question. All right. So the answer for Brain Buster number 4 is 30 amps. For your 30 amp air compressor, your 24 amp dust collector. And now you see how we did that. Both of those loads aren't running at the same time. They're non-simultaneous. All right? They don't run at the same time. There's another word for it. I believe it was non-coincidental. Non-coincidental loads. They're loads that don't run at the same time. I can't find it in the 2026 NEC now to demonstrate what I'm talking about. But that's your homework. Non-coincidental loads. I made some TikToks on it before, but it's just not coming to my head right now. But we're going to go on to Brain Buster number 5. All right. Once again, joshthesparky.com/brain-busters. And you can scroll through there, answer this packet yourself, and then view the answer keys. And you can also download it as a PDF, etc. All the questions are from my Friday question of the week, every Friday at 9 a.m. sometime that day. Every day or every Friday, I go on there and I post on NECChat.com the question of the week for people to solve, learn, and discuss about. And sometimes we even have CMECPs join in, and Paul Abernathy joins in. Some educators join in and drop knowledge bombs as well, and really get into the knowledge and learning. And they just hit 250 members on there, which is awesome. But man, I'm only at like 3 followers, so go follow me on NECChat.com. It's SparkyForever29. Always posting questions on there. And I'll post even more if people start liking my posts and stuff. I'll post more. So let's go on Brain Buster number 5. We're halfway through. A living room wall is 14 feet long, unbroken by doorways, fireplaces, or similar openings. According to the NEC 210.52A1, what is the minimum number of receptacle outlets required on this wall? Hint, apply the receptacle spacing rule on the wall's length. Alright, now this one, I know it, but we're going to break it down. We're going to go through it. So immediately, it's giving you where to go. NEC 210.52. Where's that? Chapter 2 of the NEC. Alright? And what's it talking about? It's talking about branch circuits. Branch circuits. Alright? You're going to go down. We're going to scroll. We see bold scan, right? If you're flipping through. But I'm going to go through and, you know, I see 210.4, scope, 210.18, part 2. I see part 3. That's where we need to be in on 210. Part 3, 210.5, receptacle outlets. All right. We see receptacle outlets. Receptacle outlets shall be installed as specified in 210.52 through 210.65. And what is this question talking about? 210.52. So we're going to go to 210.52, dwelling unit receptacle outlets. This section provides requirements for 125 volt, 15, and 20 ampere receptacle outlets. The receptacle required by this section shall be in addition to any receptacle that is one of the following. We got 1, part of the luminaire or appliance. 2, controlled by wall, switch, or listed wall-mounted control device in accordance with 210.70A1 section 1. We got 3, located within cabinets or cupboards. And we got 4, located more than 5.5 feet above the floor. Permanently installed electric baseboard heaters equipped with factory-installed receptacle outlets or outlets provided as a separate assembly by the manufacturer shall be permitted as required outlet for outlets for the wall space utilized by such permanently installed heaters. Such receptacle outlets shall not be connected to the heater circuits. Informational note: listed baseboard heaters include instructions that may not permit their installation below receptacle outlets. All right, I'll read a little NFPA insight here. An outlet containing a duplex receptacle that is wired so that only one of the receptacles is controlled by a wall switch can be used to meet the receptacle outlet spacing requirement. However, if both halves of the duplex receptacle are controlled by a wall switch or other wall-mounted control device such as augments and sensors, additional unswitched receptacles have to be installed to meet the receptacle outlet spacing requirement. This could help prevent an occupant from running an extension cord from a receptacle that is not controlled by a switch to an appliance that requires continuous power. I just wanted to throw that in because a lot of people are like, why do we have all these requirements? NFPA gives you insight to why these requirements come to, why they think of these things. You know, it's not just throwing code. We're making up codes here just to make up code. We need money. Give me your money. You know, they're not doing that. It's because things have happened. Kids have pulled down coffee makers and scolded themselves and even killed themselves. And you know, this red book is built off of blood. And every code has a reason. It's not just because, these guys sitting in their offices or sitting at the big center stages discussing code all day want to make our life miserable. They're just trying to make life safer. So, in this question, it gives us 210.52A1, and we go down to general provisions, that's A, and we go to 1, which is spacing. And we read receptacles shall be installed receptacles shall be installed such that no point measured horizontally along the floor line of any wall space is more than 6 feet from a receptacle outlet. In this question, it says the living room wall is 14 feet, unbroken by doorways, fireplaces, or similar openings. All right. So we're going to scroll down a little bit more. We see wall space in 2, wall space from 210.52. Any space 2 feet or more in width, including space measured around corners and unbroken along the floor line by doorways and similar openings, fireplaces, stationary appliances, and fixed cabinets. Right there, word for word what's in the question. We're looking for that 2 feet. All right? 2 feet. 2 feet. Oh no, I was reading too much. That's where you gotta stop reading. I was reading wall space 2 feet. I was going too far ahead of myself. We don't need that 2 feet. We just need that 6 feet. Take that 14, and we're gonna just divide it. 14 divided by 6. We can't have 2.3 outlets. We can only have 2. All right. So that for Brain Buster number 5, 2 outlets for a 14-foot wall. Okay. And we got that by taking that 6 foot and just taking 14, dividing 6 by it, gave us 2.3333. Repeating, you can't have 2.3 of an outlet. So we're just going to get rid of that 0.3. Gives us 2 outlets. Okay. Great. Brain Buster number 6. A 120 240 volt single phase dwelling service is installed using a 200 amp panel board. The grounding electrical system consists of 2 8-foot ground rods driven 6 feet apart. A grounding electrical conductor is run from the service to the first ground rod and then to the second ground rod. Measure the resistance of the first rod to earth, which is 38 ohms. That's the measured resistance of the first rod. According to NEC 250.53A2 and 250.53A3, what is required for this grounded electrode system? All right, we got some options here. We got no additional action is required because 2 rods are already installed. We got a supplemental grounding electrode is required because resistance exceeds 25 ohms. We got the system must be reconfigured because ground rods cannot be used in pairs. And we got the grounding electrode conductor must be increased in size to reduce resistance. All right. And we got a hint, pay close attention to the exception involving a single rod's resistance to earth. Let's go to 250.53A. Sorry, I'm drinking a protein shake. It's the only thing I got next to me, and I'm extremely thirsty. I didn't think I'd go this long, but I want to get through all 10 of these questions, and I know I'm kind of being a slouch getting through them, but I said I'd do it, and I want to do it what I said. So we're going to go into 250. That is our grounding and bonding in Chapter 2 of the NEC 2026 edition. So go to 250, and this question gave us, I believe they would call it like a mulligan, like they already gave you something to fall back on, which is 250.53A2 and A3. That's where we got to look. That's what the question is referring to. So we are going to get 250.53, which is grounding electrode system installation. First thing that pops up, we see our rod, pipe, and a plate electrode requirements. Rod, pipe, and plate electrodes shall be free from non-conductive coatings such as paint and enamel. Rod and pipe plate electrodes shall meet the requirements of 250.53A1 through 53A3 for 250. All right. Great. So we are going to scroll through. Now this mentioned 250.53A3. So I'm going to bold scan straight down to A3, which is supplemental electrode. If multiple rod, pipe, or plate electrodes are installed to meet the requirement of the section, they shall not be less than 6 feet apart. So, ground rod number 1, 6 feet apart. Ground rod number 2, they shall not be less than 6 feet apart. Now, from what I heard, you can do, if you put one ground rod in, you can take the second one, lay it on the ground from where that first ground rod is, and it's going to only be 2 feet extra that you're going to be putting that ground rod in, because that ground rod's only 8 feet long. So it's going to be, you can just use that ground rod to measure where your next ground rod's going to go and subduct 2 feet or keep it at 8. Is this from the CEC? I believe that's the Canadian Electrical Code. This is not Canada. I'm in America, so this is the NEC, National Electrical Code, which I believe Canada uses some of it and some other countries use it. That's why it's national. But we use the American standards here. There's another standard that we use here in America. I think it's the IEEE standards for like motors and NEMA standards. We got other standards like that, but what I'm reading off of is the NEC National Electrical Code, the 2026 edition. And we're doing 10 code questions right now. I make weekly code questions on NECChat.com. And you can go there, sign up for free, answer questions every week, join in with actual educators. They'll drop some knowledge bombs. And then from there, you can learn and go into my site where I make all the packets. I'll take every question I do, I'll put them into a nice little like study packet, and then you can just scroll through, answer them. And I also put like a answer key sheet that you can download, and you can kind of just like do them offline away from the screen if you wanted to, because a lot of people like studying away from computer screens. And right now we're just answering this question that's asking what is required for this grounding electrode system. And so far, it seems single phase dwelling service. It gives us a lot of information we don't need. We don't need to know it's a 240, 120 volt single phase dwelling that's using a 200 amp panel board. We just need to know the grounding electrode system consists of two 8-foot ground rods driven 6 feet apart. A grounding electrode conductor is run from the service to the first rod and then to the second rod. Everything else is pretty much irrelevant to this question. We got the measured resistance to the first rod to earth is 38 ohms. When we scroll up a little bit, it talks about 25 ohms being needed. 25 ohms or less in 250.53, exceptions for A2. And this is 38 ohms if a single rod, pipe, or plate electrode has a resistance to earth of 25 or less, the supplemental electrode shall not be required. This has 38. So it is required, and it is 6 feet apart, as we've read in the previous text from the previous sub-article there. And we know it's 8 feet down, and we can have two of them. So everything in this question so far, two 8-foot grounds driven 6 feet apart, sounds great to me. So I'm going to go with A, no additional action is required because two rods are already installed. Our other options were B, a supplemental grounding electrode is required because resistance exceeds 25 ohms. C, the system must be reconfigured because ground rods cannot be used in pairs. And D, the grounding electrode conductor must be increased in size to reduce resistance. So if we got any of those three, I feel like we didn't read the article. So it's telling you what to read. If you go off somewhere else, you're reading something else, and you're reading something that isn't what it's talking about. So we got that one done. That was like a lot, but it really wasn't a lot if you know what to look for. That's the whole part about bold scanning and breaking down the question and being able to decipher what's useless and what's not, because they're going to throw a lot of useless stuff like I just read off into that question. Single phase dwelling, 200 amp, 120, 240 volt, resistance to earth. Don't need to know any of that. Just need to know two 8-foot ground rods, 6 feet apart. Is that legal? Yes, perfectly fine. So Brain Buster number 7, we got commercial kitchen demand factors. A restaurant feeder supplies the following kitchen equipment: electric range, a deep fryer, an ice machine, and a dishwasher. According to the NEC 2026 Article 120.56, which statement correctly describes the equipment that may be included when applying the commercial kitchen equipment demand factors? All right, I'll read off the answers. We got A, only electric cooking appliances qualify. We got B, only cooking appliances and dishwashers qualify. We got C, qualifying commercial cooking equipment, dishwasher, booster heaters, water heaters, instantaneous water heaters, and other qualifying kitchen equipment may be included. And we got D, all equipment located anywhere in the restaurant automatically qualifies. And we got our hint here that I'll drop. Pay close attention to the phrase other kitchen equipment. Other kitchen equipment. And read the requirements in 120.56. So let's go to 120.56, which in the 2023 code used to be 220 for calculations. They now moved it to 120 in the 26, which is all part of the bigger plan to completely reorganize the entire structure of the 2029's NEC. Once again, not to just make it difficult on us. It's not really what they're doing, trying to make it easy for the next future standards to come out, like in the 2030s and the 2040s. This is all part of bigger plans going on to help ourselves in the future with this book that ever grows. So all of these articles I'm naming off right now, reading off like that, going to be completely reset in 2029 and different. Not so much, but it will be different in 2029. There's also a table in the 2026 NEC where you can go and you can actually see how they are changing things for 2029, so you can study that and be prepared for it. So they're not just completely like whoop-de-doo, you know, you're going to have to relearn everything. But it's going to be everybody. Everyone from the masters to us new guys are going to have to relearn how to understand that reorganization of the 2029 NEC. Anyways, let's go to 120.56. Thank you guys for tuning in with me today, staying here. Whoever's still here, learning with me, I appreciate it. Going to go to 120.56 here in the calculations. That's going to be part 3, feeder and service load calculations, all right? So we're going to go to 56. That's instantaneous water heaters in kitchen equipment other than dwelling units. All right. Okay, so let's read this off. We got 120.56, instantaneous water heaters in kitchen equipment other than dwelling units. We got calculating for the load for instantaneous water heaters in commercial electric cooking equipment, dishwasher booster heaters, water heaters, and other kitchen equipment in accordance with table 120.56 shall be permitted other than kitchen equipment shall include equipment that is fastened in place and rated 1/4 horsepower or greater, or 500 watts or greater. These demand factors shall be applied to all instantaneous water heaters or equipment that has either thermostatic control or intermittent use as kitchen equipment. These demand factors shall not apply to space heating, ventilating, or air conditioning equipment. However, in no case shall the feeder or service calculated load be less than the sum of the largest 2 kitchen loads. All right. We got our table here for 120.56, demand factors for instantaneous water heaters in kitchen equipment. All right. I don't think we even have to read that because this is just asking us, according to the 2026 Article 120.56, which statement correctly describes the equipment that may be included when applying the commercial kitchen equipment demand factors. All right. So we have A, only electric cooking appliances qualify. I don't see that. I don't see where it says only electrical cooking appliances. I see cooking equipment. I see commercial electric. I see dishwasher. I see it including other things. I don't see just that. So scratch that off. B, only cooking appliances and dishwashers only. I don't see that mentioned. If that was the case, it would mention just those 2. It wouldn't go on to say electric cooking equipment, dishwasher, booster heaters, water heaters, and other kitchen equipment. Right? We got C, qualifying commercial cooking equipment, dishwasher, booster heaters, water heaters, instantaneous water heaters, other qualifying kitchen equipment may be included. Ring-a-ding-ding, I think that's one. But let's read this final one. All equipment located anywhere in the restaurant automatically qualifies. I think this one's C. So we're going to go with C on this one for Brain Buster number 7. All right. So that's kind of how, like, you're going to break down things. You got to use the answers, and, you know, you're going to be, like, flip-flopping through that because you don't have, like, a calculation to instantly go off of. But it gives you the answer in that text. The code will always have the answer. Not always. Some questions will completely leave you stumped, and sometimes that's what they're supposed to do, to waste your time. You're just going to have to skip it and nail the other questions, or flag it until the end. You know, I've heard cases like Paul Abernathy's shared on his podcast before, Master of the NEC podcast. He shared where people have said, you know, they just couldn't find this one question. There will be questions like that where you can't find the answers. He's admitted that too, where you just won't be able to find the answers. You can't dwell on those. You can't dwell on the questions where you'll never find the answers because you're never going to find the answers to all the other questions that you could easily find the answer to. So we're going to go to Brain Buster number 8. A restaurant has the following kitchen equipment connected to a feeder: electric range 12 kilowatt, 12,000 watts, deep fryer 8,000 watts, griddle 10,000 watts. We got convection oven 10,000 watts. Convert those to VA